It's that time of morning. Good morning and welcome to the garden.
Now I've been happy lately, thinking about the good things to come, and I believe it could be something good has begun. Oh, I've been smiling lately, dreaming about the world as one, and I believe it could be someday it's going to come. 'Cause out on the edge of darkness there rides a peace train. Oh, peace train, take this country, come take me home again. I've been smiling lately, thinking about the good things to come, and I believe it could be something good has begun. Oh, peace train sounding loud, glide on the peace train. Come on the peace train, the peace train, holy roller. Everyone jump on the peace train. Come on the peace train, get your bags together, go and bring the good friends too, because it's getting in, it soon will be with you. Oh, come and join the living, it's not so far from you, and it's getting near, soon all will all be true. Oh, peace train sounding loud, glide on the peace train. Ooh-ah-ee-ah-ooh-ah. Come on the peace train. Been crying lately, thinking about the world as it is. Why must we go on hating? Why can't we live in bliss? 'Cause out on the edge of darkness there rides a peace train. Oh, peace train, take this country, come take me home again. Oh, peace train sounding louder, glide on the peace train. Come on the peace train, oh, peace train, holy roller. Everyone jump on the peace train. Ooh-ah-ee-ah-ooh-ah. Come on, come on, come on. Come on the peace train. Yes, it's the peace train.
All right, good morning. We're so glad that you are here and you've got your ticket on the peace train at the garden. Thank you, Michael. Isn't he amazing? Come on. You're amazing. And you too, David Crosby. You're not bad yourself. And you, Ringo, as well. You're all amazing. Oh, they're all so amazing, aren't they? Hey, we're so glad you're here. We're going to just keep things rolling ahead. I want to encourage you to look in your program. In your program, there are lots of different things going on. I want to encourage you, and I'm going to invite Jerry too, because I haven't done that yet. On October 28th, we're going to see what our next step is in the interfaith conversation. We're going to have a meal at my house. It's a Friday night. We'd love to have you join us there. There's details all about that. So next week, there is a really neat speaker who's going to join us. His name is Montez Day. He comes to us through the Storytellers Project. Montez was incarcerated, and after his incarceration, had a story to share. And so the Storytellers Network of Indiana, along with St. Luke's United Methodist Church, put together a program where they have taught people how to share their stories. So next week we have Montez, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I want to encourage you not only to come yourselves, but bring someone who's maybe struggling in life right now. You may not know it, but there's somebody in your life who probably has a DUI, or there's somebody else who's struggling with some kind of issue. Invite them next week to find a little hope and promise in life. So I want to encourage you to be part of that. The 30th of September is the Great Smoke-Off, and I was told yesterday at a conference that there was September. Whatever day it is. Thank you, Leanne. Did you see how I tried to convince you that it was September? It is October 30th, the Great Smoke-Off. And somebody shared with me yesterday, we got a little sign up here, but somebody shared with me that someone brought a bunch of pork last year. And they're like, who was that? And I have no idea. So they're pretty excited about that pork coming back. So, right, Mike? We can't remember who it was. We don't remember you, but your pork is pretty darn memorable. So, but that's also a fun day. We encourage you to dress up in costumes. Are you going to do that, Michael? And we're just going to have a really good time. And then while UCI is having their service, we'll do what we can to help support the effort. The luncheon starts at noon. And that is a fundraiser. We are putting together some baskets for food impoverished right here on the north side. So come, bring some dollar bills to tuck dollars, to give dollars to whoever gets the most dollars wins. So. Only at the garden, So, hey, it takes a village for a community like the Garden to come together, and we have been blessed with a new person who's been directing our kids in Stepping Stones. And I introduce her every week, but we just need to pause and give thanks for Leanne, who is here, whether she has 1 kid or 30. She's always here. Leanne, what's going on in Stepping Stones?
Look forward to the Stepping Stones every Sunday, and it's Kara with a C. She's not having a moment anymore. She had a little bit of a moment today. Her mom's like, not today, not right now. And I'm thinking, after a donut, everyone
Well, do you
is
know
better.
what her middle name is?
No.
Carolyn. And we have a gift for having moments that a donut fixes every
Clearly.
time. Every time.
So I have a question today. The kids and I are talking about friendship again. We can never talk too much about friendship, but how many of you have the bestest friend in the whole wide world? Yeah, I have a bestest friend in the whole wide world too. And so did David. David had the bestest friend in the whole wide world. His name was Jonathan. And Jonathan was Saul's son. Now, as we had discussed before about the birthright, who's the next king?
It's Saul.
Jonathan would have been the next king. But I forgot.
Jonathan
would have been the next king. Jonathan knew he wasn't going to be king.
No, I'm not going to be king.
He's not going to be king, and he knew that David was going to be king.
I think Chuck thought that too. But
Yeah.
oh, now he is.
There he is. There he is. But
King Charles, come on.
Jonathan
Work with me.
woo.
Try the veal.
Jonathan wasn't jealous of David at all. He actually was even more friends with David and helped David when Saul tried to kill him. Remember, Saul got really upset and tried to kill him. So we're going to talk about friendship today and having a best friend and what does it mean to have a best friend. And you know what?
I'm just curious.
Were you curious about this?
Yes.
Well,
I swear it's not in the Bible. I have never found Colgate in the Bible.
No, but this is going to be a lesson in our words.
Nice.
So, if you're interested in how this could possibly be lesson in words, come on downstairs and we're going to have a good old time learning about friendship and words.
That's beautiful.
I know.
We love you. We love you. That's beautiful. All right, today is the last Sunday in this space for Pathway to Peace, and it has been an amazing adventure. So let's be really intentional today during our centering time to pause, center our hearts, our minds. Actually, I'm going to talk today about thinking, talking, and walking. So let's ask for God's peace with your thinking, talking, and walking. We're glad you're here. Shalom. Salam. Namaste. Peace. I'm going to invite Jerry forth. This week, Jerry's going to share with us about the Buddhist tradition. And I also want to take this moment just to simply thank you for this great adventure. You'll hear a little more about it in the sermon, but I think you've really had an impact on a lot of people. So will you join me in thanking Jerry?
Thank you.
Jerry, tell us about the Buddhist tradition.
Well, thank you. And let me say that it's been a real privilege for me to be here with you. You're ahead of the curve for many of us who come out of the Christian tradition. As we were talking at our table earlier, you know, this whole movement of spirituality, of seeing this connectedness to one another is happening more and more. And we see the signs of it, but we're still just in the beginning stages of it. And so I commend you for that. I look forward to being there. I got it on my calendar at your house that we can look forward to more conversation, interfaith. Doug Stout was going to be here from the Buddhist community, but Geisha Sampson, who is the leader of that community, ended up having found out how do you say, the cancer is inoperable, and so they're kind of closing things up for him there at the Buddhist community here in Annapolis. But I hope that we'll maybe create some ways so that you can go visit the Buddhist temple, visit the Hindu temple, that will have some of these type of opportunities so that you can meet some of the people who you've, like JR from the Hindu community. But in Buddhism, it's interesting because Hinduism came first, and then Buddha, known as the Enlightened One, who was a prince, and he was very wealthy, but he got very bored and found this life to be very empty, really. And so he began his own journey of this quest to find a deeper meaning in his life. Siddhartha Gautama is who the Buddha is. Hermann Hesse has a small book called Siddhartha. I read it I didn't even know what it was about, but it was a thin book, so I chose it for my literature class in high school because it was thin. And that's what I became. I was like, wow, this guy is really cool. So Siddhartha, though, began on the journey, and he encountered a person who was an old man, an ill man, and a corpse, and an ascetic, which made him kind of realize this whole issue of suffering. And so in Buddhism, it's about learning to release from the suffering and the journey of that. And they believe, as in Hinduism, in reincarnation and that karma, and we've talked about karma and the idea of what you put out there, you'll come back. And so there's a whole kind of a movement, the spiritual person who's trying to reach enlightenment is to get rid of all those things that cause suffering in their life and in the world. And part of that reincarnation is we move and come back. Now, the interesting thing about reincarnation is there were some early Christian theologians and a priest who believed in reincarnation. But that was snuffed out by the Catholic Church because it was a heresy. But the concept of reincarnation, in that when you die, you don't just go to heaven or wherever that is beyond here and just stop, but that your spirit comes back to work things out, to kind of have another chance to work it out. So that, and I kind of like this in this way, because the idea is if you're dealing with addiction or you're dealing with issues in your life, we kind of think, well, when we die, we're all released and it's just easy. So it's kind of a cop-out. When in reality, you got to work it out now, because if you don't work it out in Buddhism, in Hinduism, you're going to still have those issues in the next life. Now, people say, well, I don't want to be reincarnated, a bug or a dog, but you won't be, because the idea is where we are on the spiritual journey, we're already at some level of consciousness here. But as you move to that, you come to another level. Some people talk about people with old souls who have kind of awakening of 2 or 3 different type of lives that they've had. And as they are rising to a higher level of consciousness. So reincarnation has that idea of working things out, trying to come to that new place. Now, Buddhism doesn't speak about heaven or God, because they believe nirvana, which is the total enlightenment, would be what we would call maybe heaven or God in that way. But they don't speak about location, but that nirvana is maybe the ultimate oneness with the universe. But karma is very strong. Now, the difference of Buddhism to Hinduism was that Buddha saw in Hinduism this caste system, and they had priests, and they had rituals. And Buddha pushed away from that. Now we realize that the caste system is not in the Hindu scriptures. It was culturally in India. So people who are Hindu would say that the caste system isn't in the teachings. It was of their culture. But in those days, there wasn't that understanding. And so Buddha was kind of like Martin Luther in the Reformation. When Protestants said, we don't want priests, we don't want bishops, we just believe the priesthood of all believers, and the Reformation happened in Christianity, Buddhism was kind of that movement, that everybody had that same connection and movement to be able to be reincarnated and move to karma and to a higher enlightenment. So the prayer that I have today is from the Dalai Lama. And let me say, this is an interesting point with the Dalai Lama, that, his brother was at the Bloomington, at the Buddhist temple and the center there. So he came to visit, he knew of the interfaith work. There's a strong interfaith in Louisville, strong interfaith group in Louisville. Then there is in Jeffersonville, in Bloomington, in Columbus now. Then the Indianapolis, greater Indianapolis area. We have about 4 interfaith groups here, kind of with Carmel Interfaith Alliance. Fishers now has one. There's a number of other smaller ones. Muncie now has this. There's an interfaith group in Lafayette. There's an interfaith group in Fort Wayne and all the way up to South Bend. And the Dalai Lama said when he came that when interfaith work is done on the West Coast or the East Coast, it stops. But when it happens in the Midwest, it has a ripple effect that can have this wonderful change of hearts in our country. And so I commend you and encourage you to continue to find ways that we can be peacemakers and let the ripple effects that are happening in Indiana, which is this conservative state in some ways, but it's also becoming much more diverse than what people realize. There are 7 peace centers in Indiana that are focusing on peace by itself, as well as the interfaith groups. So I feel excited and proud of the work that we're doing together. So let me have this as our prayer, and may you join with me in the prayer from the Dalai Lama for us today. May all beings everywhere, plagued by suffering of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fail ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound to be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Amen.
Can't slow down, don't wanna give in to the game my mind's playing, but I can't win. I wanna let go, I've gotta let go, 'cause I'm running on empty, can't loosen the load. My thoughts are moving too fast down the wrong road. I wanna let go, just gotta let go, so I can open my heart and my mind to find the peace. Open my heart and my mind to find the peace. Voice inside is speaking way too loud, and I can't get a breath and to slow me down. I wanna let go, just gotta let go. My mind is open, but I can't feel the spirit of love spinning my ear. I wanna let go, just gotta let go, so I can open my heart and my mind to find the peace. Open my heart and my mind to find the peace. I wanna breathe in the light and fill in all the space with the giving love, with the quietness of grace. Open my heart and my mind to find the peace. Open my heart and my mind to find the peace.
music written by our own Rhonda Baker.
Thank you. And Greg. And Greg had something to do with that too. Thank you.
Talk about a spirit-filled piece. That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. All right. Hey guys, I just asked Jerry if he'd be interested in doing that final story. I'm just letting you know that I may call you back up. We'll talk about it. I'm kind of a in-the-moment kind of gal. You wouldn't believe that, right? That's why everybody runs around here looking so scared all the time. So I want us just to quickly take a look at this text, and it's in your bulletin, and it is by far one of my favorite texts in the whole Bible. And this is Jesus' words that he leaves with his disciples and all those who are gathered before he ascends back in heaven, right? So these are like his last thoughts for us, all right? He says very clearly, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." So today is the end of Jerry's portion of our class on the Pathway to Peace, and I want to encourage you, if you've not picked up the book, to do so, because a lot of us have had a really amazing some of us even a life change through it. It's no surprise that the very last chapter is entitled "The Quest for Peace," because clearly this interfaith conversation for Jerry has been a quest since we just learned high school, right? Since high school. He has realized that there was more than maybe what they were giving him in church. There was more than maybe the limited view that he had been given, and his quest started probably before he even realized it. And his quest for peace has not only impacted his life, but it's had an impact not only on our lives, but he has started conversations and building community and relationships all over, as he noted earlier, with a lot of fun as well. He has been doing interfaith work. You said we're ahead of the curve. Dude, you were way ahead of the curve. I even wrote that in my message here. And as I said, when we all realize that the quest for peace is owned by all of us, we can all be richer for it. So today I want to talk about the quest for peace for each and every one of us. It may be a little different than Jerry's, but we all can be part of the quest for peace through our thinking, our talking, and our walking. Our thinking, our talking, and our walking. You know the song, "Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with Steve." No, it's not Steve, right? It's me. Let peace begin with me. I know we make fun of that song, but there is a lot of truth in that. It's so true that we get focused on something out here that we forget. And in fact, here at the Garden, we forgot for a really long time that this service was not about professional singers and this and that. It's about centering ourselves and connecting with a spirit that we don't have any control over. That's why many years ago we added this centering time, this time to invite the spirit into the space. Because there and only there, when we give up control, can we find that inner peace. Now, I have to be honest with you. I struggle with this, not just a little bit, a lot. And I'm curious, as you sit there right now, if I say to you, do you have inner peace? Just check in for a moment and figure out, you don't have to share with anybody unless you want to. Where are you on that inner peace journey? Now, if your first inclination is to say, yeah, I'm there. That's why I'm here this morning. I haven't had any coffee. And I just woke up to be someplace at 9 o'clock because I'm so at peace. Chances are most of us are not in that space, right? Chances are most of us have already started the day before our feet hit the ground, have already picked up our phone before our feet hit the ground. We talked about this last week. And we are not centering on ourselves on shalom, salam, namaste, and peace. As I said before, I too have a lot of trouble with this. And what I have discovered through doing Jerry's book and just pausing on the daily meditations, I'm going to be totally honest with you, what I did was I would read it and then I would go for a walk. So where is my journal? In my heart, I guess. But I soon began to realize that this inner peace concept is not something that comes naturally for me. And in fact, when I think about peace and the peace in my life, I've come to realize that the minute I get close to it, I go, but. Right? But there's inflation and there's recession and there's war, and I can recall someone who needs me, and I can recall all the things my husband does that annoys me. I can, you know what I mean? So the minute you're like, oh, I'm almost there, then something from the external world changes my thinking, which then changes my heart, which then changes my walking. I think recognition really is half the battle. It's just pausing to recognize that. That's what I have learned in this class. And some of you who've been in the class have seen it. Like we'll get to the place where we get this journey towards peace conversation almost settled, and I'll say, Donald Trump, or something like that. And suddenly you're back into the chaos. Chaos keeps us from peace. And I think in some ways, a lot of us have become so attached to chaos that we think that that's the way that life is supposed to be, right? Our news feeds us chaos. Our lives are chaotic. You go to your calendar and it's already filled, and peace is not in the calendar. I think it's important, at least for me, to recognize that I have gotten into a pattern of almost finding peace and then taking control again to say, it's chaos, it's this, it's that. We're Christians and we have to transform the world. We have to we have to end the war in the Ukraine. We have to do this, we have to do that. And then I'm in chaos and nothing is peaceful. It has taken me back. So I've started on a daily basis. It's taken me back to this prayer, and it's called the Serenity Prayer. And I've come to realize, do you know the Serenity Prayer? It's, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, what's interesting to me is as a doer, I immediately try to figure, I feel so confident in myself, I can probably change this. I can probably stop war. I can. No, you can't. Not in this instant. You cannot. That's what I figured out. In this instant, you can't change that. But what you can do is seek the serenity to accept whatever it is that's not happening right now. Do you understand what I'm saying? You just have to pause and accept where you are in every given moment. I think it's a beautiful prayer, but you have to realize you cannot change anything in this moment. Only God can. We have a lot of accepting to do before we can truly explore what can be changed. And I don't think we're very good at that anymore. Look at me pointing at you. I don't think we're very good at that anymore. I think the truth about life is we're not finding peace and we're not finding serenity because we can't accept what's going on around us. I think whether we like it or not, we have to. You have to accept that your children, grandchildren, whoever, are not living the life that you would have them live. You have to accept that people are making choices around you that will impact you in some way or another. And you have to accept that, because that will steal your peace if you constantly try to fix the world outside of yourself. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And if you're anything like me, you have to ask God to really, really intercede. I am a control freak, I have come to determine. I have a lot of yeah buts in my life. But the only way I can find serenity is to seek peace today. And not just this peace, but this deep peace that passes our understanding that Jesus talked about today. A peace that makes no sense when there is war in the world. A peace that makes no sense when our brothers and sisters are struggling to pay their bills. That's the kind of peace we must seek within. And the only way that's going to happen is if we pause and we consider our thinking, our talking, our walking, and it will all impact our heart. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Accept it. This leads to the next step on this quest journey. So finding that place for peace within. My point is it's not as easy as you think it is, or else we would be in a lot different place in our world today. The next place that Jerry goes to is this whole idea of, it's essentially Micah 6:8, where we're called to advocate for justice, walk humbly, and love kindness. As peace walkers, we're called to speak up, but also to listen. We have been reminded that all those we've encountered on this journey in the last 6 weeks are people who are seeking unity, people who are seeking relationship with people who do not necessarily think the way they do. And so, yes, there are people in this world who want the same things that you do. I think it's important that we realize that, because so often our conversation for unity and peace never makes it outside this room. It's got to make it into the world in different ways. It has to. We have to seek to be in conversation with people in different faith traditions. I have 2 stories I'd like to share with you that just happened yesterday. Shannon and I yesterday went to a workshop it's called Dinner Church. And I thought we were going to go and show them how to do dinner theater church, but that really isn't. No, I'm joking. That wasn't it. But it's creating new community around table, inviting people to table. And let me tell you, the garden has had a great impact on this leader, because there was some language there that I really struggled with. Saving souls, looking for sore communities, just the sacred, we got to somehow infiltrate, the sacred world has somehow got to infiltrate the secular. And I got a little uptight, and I looked over at Shannon and I said, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. And do you know what she said? Give it a chance. Do you know what I heard? Give peace a chance. I had to sit in this space where there were words being said that I don't say, and honestly, I never did say them. But I now have lived in this space so long that it's difficult for me to hear that. But it's not difficult for me to love the person who's saying it, if only I can find that place where I give peace a chance. I think it's an interesting point in a world where we can turn the channel, we can move on, we can do whatever it is that we need to do. Somebody in that meeting yesterday shared a story about how we have to find ways to have these difficult conversations. He shared a story about it was just in a small group meeting. He shared a story about how he had bought a car late one night, and the next morning he had to finish the paperwork with the general manager or whatever, and he got there before the car dealership opened, and he was sitting there when the general manager came in to do his pep talk for the salespeople. And I guess sales were not so good, because he said that the pep talk was like all this profanity and taking the Lord's name in vain. And he said it was just this ugly throwing up of words at these people who were just starting their day. He said he finally got up. He's a minister. This minister learned a lesson yesterday. He finally got up and he said, I'm sorry, I don't think you know I'm sitting out here, but boy, that language is really offensive to me. And either close the door or change your way of being. The guy, of course, general manager, right, freaked out and then fell all over himself to apologize to the minister. He fell all over himself, gave the minister his card, and the minister did not count him out. In fact, the minister said, yeah, let's have lunch, let's get together. And he said he pulled up in his big Escalade, and he picked him up, and they went to lunch. And this man now goes to this pastor's church. I think there's a real lesson in all of that. I think we've been so narrow-minded in what I think and what you think and what life is happening here and there that we don't pause to say, oh, that language is really offensive. By the way, I never said to the person leading the workshop, I'm offended by that, but I promise I'll send an email this week to say, we've got to find a place to have the conversation. We've got to find the place. The guy did a great job. I didn't make it all day, but Shanna did. So we'll hear more about that eventually. Do you see what I'm getting to? Peace does indeed begin with us. It begins with our thinking, and then it moves to our talking, and then it moves to our walking. I think I've mentioned before that when we have marched, we've had difficult conversations with people, and I am always so proud of gardeners who, when they're marching, they're also thinking, and their thinking is tied to their heart, and their talking shares it too. I think we need to find ways to do that on a regular basis. The last thing that Jerry shares about a quest for peace and a persistent peace in our world is a great topic about extending mercy. Extending mercy to someone. And I'm going to invite the band back up, and I'm going to invite Jerry up to share an incredible story about two guys, Avi and Max.
Well, I think I have this. Are we good here? Okay, good. Max Ledger was a Marine, a veteran, returning from the Iraq War, lived in southern Chicago, south side of Chicago. And Avi was a gentleman whose wife had died. He wanted to be closer to his kids, so he moved in as a neighbor to Max. Well, Max and his drinking buddies, other Marines, were sitting in his backyard, and they saw Avi move in, and Avi, who had this turban on. Now, Max didn't know that he was a Sikh. He talked with his buddy about, we got a towelhead moving in. They used to call the Muslims over in Iraq towelheads. And he said, we got a towelhead moving in. And they started talking things, and as Avi was moving in, he could hear these guys making slanderous remarks about him and jeering at him. And Max and his buddies would be back there in the back, and they'd be drinking, and they'd be saying things, and Avi was by himself in his house. His kids would sometimes come to visit him, and they would see them, the men, his son, wearing a turban as well. For the Sikh folks, as we heard KP sing, wearing a Sikh was part of their tradition for the men. But Max didn't know this, and so they're making slanderous things all the time at this. And Avi, is really feeling the sense of his neighbor and the sense of hatred from them. Max continued to drink more and more and got meaner and meaner. And actually, his wife left him finally. And then he got MS. And his healthcare nurses came in, and he got even meaner to the point where his drinking buddies quit coming to be with him because he couldn't manage to get outside and just hang outside with him. Well, Avi, of course, being his neighbor, saw that all the people were coming was the nurses. They saw the moving van when his wife had taken all her stuff and left. And he could see that his drinking buddies were no longer there, but just the nurse would come in. Avi made this container of soup and went up to the front door, and knocked on Max's front door. The door opened up and Max went, "Yeah? What do you want?" He says, "Well, I just have this container of soup I thought you might want." The door closed. Avi decided to put it on the doorstep and left it there. A week went by, and he didn't hear anything from Max, of course, and he didn't expect to. But he was making some soup again for himself, so he made another container. And he went over to Max's front door and knocked. The door opened up. "What do you want?" "I just have a container of soup again. I thought you might want it." "It wasn't so bad, thanks." And he took it, closed the door. So Avi does this a third time. And he takes the container and he goes to the front door the week later, knocks on the door, and Max opens up the door. "What? Why are you doing this?" And Avi says, "Because in my faith, we are to offer mercy and forgiveness. And I heard you and your buddy making fun of me, but I know what it's like to be alone. You see, my wife died of cancer, and so I'm alone too." And that moment, something happened in Max. There was something inside of him that here was somebody understood his being alone and the loneliness of that and that pain. And the door opened up a little bit more. "Well, your soup is pretty good. I mean, I've got a couple of your containers. There's plenty of soup here. Why don't you come in and have some soup with me?" Avi was taken back a little. And he said, "Well, I need to get my containers anyway." And so he goes into the house. And he has soup with Max. This man who had hated him, who slandered him, and yet he knew what it was like to be alone. And now they both found some sense of peace for themselves and with each other. And in that moment, there was a glimpse of shalom.
Today, as we share in our harvest basket, I want to encourage you to be mindful of where you're not finding peace in your life. We all like to identify with Avi, but the truth is we're Max too. What are we closing the door on in our lives? What's getting in the way of the Spirit truly entering into our lives? Sure, this is a time for offering your treasures, and we appreciate that. But I also would like to see you put in there that which is keeping you from a rich relationship with the Spirit of peace. We all have someone in our lives that we're either trying to control or they're trying to control us or whatever. Drop them in the basket. Drop whatever situation it is in your life in this basket and truly turn it over to God. Let go. Because then and only then will you find the peace you need in here. And then when you find the peace in here, you'll have what you need in here to deal with different situations in life. You'll have what you need here, and you'll walk a journey or a quest of peace. At this time, may our prayers and our offerings be received, and as we do so, I'd like to share with you one of my favorite peace prayers, and it's the prayer of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, Pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
We're gonna walk together, arm in arm, with peace in our hearts. We're gonna walk together, arm in arm, with peace in our hearts. Gonna walk together, arm in arm, so our sisters and brothers won't come to any harm. We know we've got peace in our hearts. We're gonna walk with every color and tribe, with peace in our hearts. We're gonna walk with every color and tribe, with peace in our hearts. We're gonna walk together with every color and tribe, 'cause we know we are stronger when we're on the same side. We know we got peace in our hearts. We're gonna stand on the earth and our children too, with peace in our hearts. We're gonna stand for the earth and our children too, with peace in our hearts. We're gonna stand for the earth and our children too, 'cause it'll take everyone to make this dream come true. We know we got peace in our hearts. Gonna stare in the face of a hateful mind, with peace in our hearts. We're gonna stare in the face of a hateful mind, with peace in our hearts. We're gonna stare in the face of a hateful mind, 'cause all we gotta do is just let the light shine. We know we got peace in our hearts. We're gonna walk together, arm in arm, with peace in our hearts. We're gonna walk together, arm in arm, with peace in our hearts. We're gonna walk together, arm in arm. Our sisters and brothers won't come to any harm. We know we got peace in our hearts. We got so much love and so much we know we got peace. We got in our hearts, in our hearts, in our hearts.
Go now in peace. And may the love of God be yours today, tomorrow, and forevermore. Amen.
Walk together, arm in arm, with peace in our hearts. We're gonna walk together, arm in arm, with peace in
go Colts. Please. For the love of Pete, go Colts. Go Colts.
I think that's one of the songs.